Coming up next, here we are at 2018 NAB with Peter Crithary, the marketing manager for Sony's cinema cameras and the new Sony VENICE.
You got to play with the camera, you used it, right?
I did.
And what'd you think?
2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. Outstanding. All right.
Red Shark News at NAB 2018 is brought to you by Adamus. Unlock creativity. Black Magic Design, amazing solutions for film, post-production, and television. G Technology, the go-to drives for creative professionals. Frame.io, the collaboration platform for video teams.
We're here at 2018 NAB with Peter Crithary, my friend and longtime colleague.
Thank you very much.
Peter's the marketing manager for the cinema cameras for Sony, and we've done a lot of stuff before in the past with the F55,
many years, yeah.
Now I've gotten to work with the VENICE, and wow, what a tool this is.
The new kid on the block.
Yeah, what was the genesis of this camera? How did this come about?
So, as you know, we have a long experience in developing cinema camera technology, right? All the way back to the F900 back in 2000.
Yeah, which I owned one of those.
You owned one of those, right?
Yeah.
And the successive models, F23, F35, the 65, the 5, and the 55. There's a lot of 5s in there, right? So what we did is we hit the stop button a couple of years ago and said, okay, enough, stop. Let's go back out into the market. Let's talk to cinematographers, directors, post-production professionals, DITs, producers, the entire gamut of filmmakers, to carefully determine what needs to be the next step going beyond the next 3, 4, 5 years. What needs to be the next platform to future-proof, to drive cinematography into very diverse distribution channels like OTT, in addition to traditional cinema, but the demands are getting higher and higher. High dynamic range is now upon us, which places increasing demands on sensor performance, and so on and so forth.
So what you guys did with this, if I understand, is that this is built from scratch. This is ground up.
Completely from scratch.
This isn't like a cooler version of the F55.
There's nothing recycled in here. We went out and we developed a new sensor, the 6K full frame, 36 by 24 millimeter, full height.
So you can shoot
frame sensor.
Full anamorphic with that?
Full height 24 millimeter anamorphic, right? In addition to the more standard formats.
Right.
And so the sensor is brand new from scratch. The color science we redid from scratch. Very carefully developing skin tone rendition, highlight roll-off, a very pleasing, softer, organic look out of the box.
The DPs I have heard from, in my own experience with this, it looks very much like film.
Right.
Even more so than some of the other really high-end cameras Sony has had.
Correct. So we have really with this gotten away from the stereotype of being broadcast and really focused very carefully on being cinematic out of the box without having to do anything special with the camera in the beginning.
And that's no small thing. I mean, my experience with this, and I had a few days to shoot with it, turn it on, set the settings like you want, start shooting, and it's like, wow, it looks like I just shot film.
Right, no, exactly. And that was, again, a huge focus of the development of the camera. The color science was right up there at the top, along with what the sensor needed to be, the performance of the sensor, and the usual trade-off between resolution and dynamic range. And so, as many of you know, when you increase resolution on a sensor, the photo sites have to get smaller. You only have a specific amount of real estate on a sensor that you can work with. The smaller the photo sites, the less dynamic range you're going to get out of the sensor. It's not marketing, it's physics. No matter what anybody tells you outside over here on the show floor, there's always a trade-off between resolution and dynamic range. So what we decided to focus on, more so than resolution, is dynamic range.
Which is 15 stops when you're shooting in RAW, right?
Literally measured by our engineers at over 15 stops, right? And so there's no defined standard on that measurement. Each manufacturer has their own benchmarks in measuring dynamic range. Some of them are realistic, some of them are not. We don't invent that. We really do focus directly from the engineers on what it is, and we publish those results. So based on their testing with this sensor, with the signal processing technology that we developed in the camera, it really is over 15 stops of dynamic range.
And where that really matters, especially when you're doing high dynamic range, is that now we have something that is capturing what you see with your eye. We are reproducing the human experience in a piece of technology, and that is no small thing.
Right.
Another interesting feature of this camera is it has dual native-based ISO. Correct. It has both 500 and 2500.
Correct.
So you can go either one of those without increasing gain, increasing noise.
That's correct.
And then use the 8 stops of internal ND to control your exposure.
To emulate.
Yes, to emulate having been in 500 or 2500.
Without changing the gain of the sensor.
Exactly. How do they do this?
Right. So
if you can tell us.
To cut a long story short, it's something that we were able to program into the camera after we did more tests with the sensor to see what it's really capable of doing. With a little more engineering work, we're able to program a different signal processing path in the camera and amplify the sensor into 2500 mode, but still maintain the exact 6 stops above and 9 stops under of dynamic range and not change the noise floor of the sensor. So you can get so much more sensitivity, especially in the shadow areas of the picture and in very low light, challenging low light conditions, without increasing noise. And then, as you mentioned, control or emulate different ISO levels without gaining up or down the sensor by using the built-in ND.
I wanted to say quickly too, having used this, the menu structure in here, this is the most simple Sony menu structure of all time, which is really saying a lot. Right. Also. It is fantastic.
That was another key focus of the development. When we went out, we did very constructive surveys. We documented surveys on what the workflow management in the camera needed to be when it came to the menu system. The terminology, the navigation, what needed to be on top, immediately accessible, how they needed to navigate within those specific categories of functionality, all of that was very carefully considered, documented, and then we were able to do that and with our engineers to arrive at what people really wanted, which is not reinventing the wheel, being used to what they're using with other cameras, and again with the same terminology and navigation, and that is what this menu system is.
And I like that I've got the user side here, which is very simple. Here's the basic things you need, and then on the other side for your AC or whomever, this is where you can go deeper in, and it's intuitive. You don't have to have a degree in engineering to figure out where do I need to go to find this. It's right there. It's very, very well thought out. That's a big deal.
We've learned a lot of lessons in developing camera technology for many years.
Because you've been listening to DPs saying, hey.
Right. And we did make the mistake early on of being more complicated than it needed to be because they were so powerful in what they could do. And again, hitting the stop button, reeling it back, let's not, we have to remove the complexity of operating the camera, and that's what we do.
Yeah, you've done a good job. Also, I just want to say, I think the XOCN and being able to record 16-bit RAW in this is phenomenal. To be able to have 16-bit RAW files that are small and manageable, yet visually lossless from full-on uncompressed, that's huge when you get into the whole workflow side of it. That's amazing. That's an amazing accomplishment.
Right. There's very big differences in performance, tonal gradation performance, grading performance, dynamic range from 10-bit, 12-bit, up to 16-bit. It's extremely difficult to engineer a 16-bit format, and so we did that. The raw format is 16-bit, which is elegantly compressed, and the XOCN takes it a step further, where it's a different approach, it's a different algorithm that gets us even more compression without losing picture performance, maintaining 16-bit tonality, and reducing the file size dramatically. This was a huge request from a number of big production entities that shoot a lot of content across multiple cameras, but need to have it a very cost-effective production workflow pipeline that they could afford to use. And so that was a result of developing XOCN, which is extended tonal range, original camera negative.
So it looks like negative film.
Right, that's the point. Yep.
So takeaway for this in a small sentence, the Venice is?
Well, the Venice is really the statement of Sony's next generation motion picture camera platform. We're committed to it. It's the only true full frame sensor camera, being 36 by 24 millimeter, as opposed to some other oddball size sensors, covering the image circle of full frame lenses perfectly. And we're firmly committed to the platform, and you're going to see a lot of updates in the future.
Cool.